Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, I've got a question for you today, and it might genuinely surprise you. What if a classic story, about a farmyard revolution written almost 80 years ago, what if it held a chilling mirror, not just to those old totalitarian regimes, but like to things happening in modern America right now? It's a pretty provocative idea, isn't it? So today we're doing a deep dive into George Orwell's Animal Farm. We're going to explore how this novella, this allegory, still resonates so strongly today, especially when you look at things like wealth and power and just, the basic structures of our society here in the U.S. We've gathered a whole stack of really fascinating articles and research that you send over. And our mission today is basically to boil those down, pull out the most thought-provoking parallels, give you those real aha moments, and show you why this farm story sometimes feels, well, less like a fable and more like a news headline. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating, I think, is just how timeless these mechanisms of power really are, how they keep showing up again and again in different systems, different times. I mean, sure, Animal Farm was very clearly aimed at Soviet totalitarianism originally. That was its main target. But the core themes, power corrupting people, how elites grab and hold on to wealth using propaganda, using fear, those are, well, they're universal. So we'll look at maybe 10 specific similarities that these sources you mentioned highlight between Orwell's farm and, well, modern America. Help you see the sort of underlying patterns of power, even in places that, claim to be all about freedom.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Maybe the most obvious parallel the sources point to, the pigs. In the book, the pigs, they climb into leadership really fast, almost opportunistically, you could say. They get all the perks, right? Best food, comfy beds, while everyone else is just working themselves ragged. It's this immediate class divide. How does that map onto today?
Well, that's where you see this really striking parallel with America's billionaire class. It's quite direct. These individuals have such extreme wealth, such concentrated power. It lets them genuinely shape laws, regulations, whole industries, often, directly benefiting themselves. Our sources really hammer this home. Wealth concentration is at historic highs. The top 1%, they own over 30% of all U.S. wealth now. And just like the pigs kind of subtly rewriting the farm rules for more apples and milk, you see billionaires pushing hard for policies. Think big tax cuts or rolling back regulations, things that basically lock in their wealth, make it even harder for others to catch up. It's like they're rigging the game.
Right. So the new leaders grab the power, grab the privilege, and what's the cost for everyone else? Which brings us to Boxer, the horse. God, Boxer, he's just relentless dedication. Always saying, I will work harder, and then what happens? Discarded. Thrown away when he's not useful anymore. It's just brutal.
It really is. And Boxer's story, it's such a powerful reflection of what many working class people face. I mean, these are the folks driving the economy, making society run, right? But they're often stuck with wages that don't go anywhere, jobs that aren't secure, maybe unsafe conditions, very little chance to actually get ahead. And the data, well, it backs this up completely. Real wages, adjusted for inflation, they haven't really budged for decades for a lot of workers. But CEO pay, it's exploded, like 1,200% since the late 70s, according to some of these analyses. So it's not just unfair pay. It's like the whole deal, the social contract has shifted. You work harder, but the rewards, they go straight to the top, just like Boxer.
And that leads right back to that famous line, doesn't it? The one that just sticks with you. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah.
It just cuts right through any pretense of fairness.
Yeah.
But how does that actually work in practice today, beyond just the money gap? What makes some people more equal when the law supposedly treats everyone the same?
That's the really crucial point. Yeah, technically the laws say everyone's equal, but in reality, having tons of money and influence means billionaires, the super rich, they can navigate the system, maybe even dodge accountability in ways that, well, regular people just can't. Think about taxes, for instance. Wealthy people often use really complex strategies, loopholes, things that are technically legal, sure, but you need huge resources, armies of lawyers and accountants just to use them. So it's effectively only available to them. It's not just about paying less tax. It sort of subtly rewrites what civic duty even means for different groups. Creates this kind of two-tiered system almost. Equality on paper, but not really in practice.
Okay, so you have this huge gap, this unfairness. But how do the powerful get everyone else to just accept it? Or at least not fight back too hard? That seems to be where Squealer comes in, right? The propaganda guy on the farm.
Yeah.
Always spinning things for the pigs.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a really chillingly accurate parallel for today. Think about who owns the media now. Billionaires, huge corporations, they control so much of it.
Hmm.
News channels, websites, social media platforms. It gives them enormous power to shape the public conversation, frame the narratives, often in ways that just, well, reinforce the way things are, keep the existing power structures in place. Media consolidation is a big piece of this, like our sources mention. Just a few companies have immense influence over what stories get told, how they're told, what even gets considered news. It's kind of like shaping reality itself for millions of people, very much like Squealer twisting the facts on the farm.
And, okay, if the spin doesn't work, if people start questioning the narrative, there's always force, right? Napoleon's dogs in the book, they were pure intimidation, fear as a weapon. But how does that kind of thing show up today? Maybe in ways that aren't quite so, obvious as a pack of attack dogs.
Right. It's often more subtle, but the dynamic is similar. We see it in things like heavily militarized police forces, extensive surveillance systems, cameras everywhere, data tracking, plus private security firms. These things often end up maintaining a certain social order, one that tends to benefit the wealthy and powerful, keep things running smoothly for them. The sources point to examples like harsh crackdowns on protests, or the really heavy policing you sometimes see in poorer neighborhoods. And don't forget corporate lobbying for those tough on crime or law and order policies. These often hit marginalized groups the hardest. It's about using visible force or the threat of force to keep things in line, keep dissent down. It definitely mirrors the dogs, keeping everyone scared and compliant.
So you pull all these pieces together, the unfair work, the different rules, the spin, the enforcement. What's the big picture? It's that massive growing wealth gap, isn't it? Just like on the farm, the pigs living in luxury while everyone else struggles.
Exactly. It's a direct reflection of the huge wealth inequality we see today. You've got this billionaire class enjoying this unbelievable luxury, super yachts, private jets, going to space even. And at the same time, you have widespread homelessness, people crushed by medical debt, real poverty. Basic needs just aren't being met for so many. The numbers are stark. The top 10% of Americans, they now control almost 70% of the country's wealth. That's hoarding resources on a scale that really echoes the pigs taking all the apples and milk for themselves. It's more than just numbers. It's a fundamental challenge to the whole idea of shared prosperity. Makes it clear things are actively concentrated, not just uneven.
And while this is happening, while the pigs are cementing their power, that original dream the animals had, equality, running the farm themselves, it just falls apart. This erosion of ideals, democratic ideals, feels incredibly relevant. How does that billion influence actually chip away at democracy itself?
That's a really critical question the sources raise. The argument is that this influence fundamentally shifts power away from, say, one person, one vote, towards whoever has the biggest checkbook. Wealthy donors pour massive amounts of money into political campaigns. They fund think tanks, lobbying efforts. It heavily shapes who runs, who wins, and what policies get prioritized. Some of the research points out that it's less than 1% of Americans providing the vast majority of campaign funding. That gives a tiny, tiny fraction of the population just disproportionate sway over the whole political process. It suggests a system where, money talks louder than votes sometimes. Which makes you ask, right, can democracy really work properly when it's so influenced by concentrated wealth?
And all the while, the regular animals, the workers, they're told, just keep working, work harder, things will get better. That promise of a future reward. But it never comes. Conditions actually get worse. It's this exhausting, endless cycle.
A powerful, powerful parallel to what so many American workers experience. You're dealing with living costs going up and up, maybe working longer hours, juggling multiple jobs, the instability of the gig economy. And meanwhile, corporate profits are hitting record highs. Productivity in the U.S., it's gone way up over the decades. But wages, for most people, flatlined, stagnant. It's Boxer's mantra all over again, I will work harder. But the rewards of that extra work, they're being siphoned off. It's like a modern form of serfdom almost. You work more, but you don't get ahead, while the system itself just gets richer at the top.
And to keep this whole system going, to justify it all, the pigs just rewrite the rules. The 7 Commandments. They just change them whenever it suits them. Blatant history revision. How does that look today? This rewriting of rules and narratives.
Oh, it happens all the time. Billionaires, politicians, powerful groups, they frequently rewrite the story. Reframe policies, regulations, history itself to justify the inequality. Think about huge tax cuts that mainly benefit the wealthy. Or massive corporate bailouts. They're almost always sold as being pro-growth, right? Good for everyone, creates jobs. Even when the evidence shows they actually increase inequality, concentrate more wealth and power at the very top. It's like a kind of societal gaslighting. Policies that help the few are spun as being good for the many. It hides who really benefits and makes it harder to see what's actually going on.
Which leads to maybe the cruelest trick of all. The illusion of freedom. The animals thought they were free after they kicked out Mr. Jones.
Mm.
Finally, liberation. Only to end up under something arguably worse, more controlling. They had the idea of freedom, but the reality was different.
Mm-hmm. And that resonates so strongly with the American narrative, doesn't it? We're constantly told, this is the land of opportunity. Work hard, play by the rules, you can achieve anything, the American dream. But for millions, systemic barriers make that dream feel impossible. Crushing student debt, housing costs through the roof, healthcare you can't afford. These things trap people. They limit mobility. They undermine that whole promise. So you have this powerful story of opportunity, but the actual paths to achieving it, they seem to be getting narrower, harder to find. An illusion of freedom, perhaps, that doesn't match the lived experience for many. And really, when you boil it down, Orwell's book wasn't just about communism. It was, and still is, this incredibly sharp warning about how power corrupts in any system, no matter what it calls itself. The parallels we've talked about today between the farm and modern America, they really highlight how easily things like concentrated wealth, exploitation, twisting the truth, using fear, how easily those things can chip away at fairness, at democracy itself. It's a cautionary tale that feels, well, urgent. It pushes us to stay awake, to see how equality can be redefined by those in power.
Yeah. And it really leaves you with a pretty challenging thought to take away. Like those animals on the farm. You put their trust in the pigs. You risk losing your own agency, your own voice, if you let concentrated wealth and unchecked power just run rampant. So the question becomes, are we going to keep playing the part of the overworked animals, accepting the rules as they're handed down, even when they change? Or will we finally demand a system where all animals, all people truly are equal, not just on paper, but in real life? Thanks for diving deep with us today. We really hope this look at animal farms' relevance gives you something serious to think about, something to question.